Se paró la transmisión. No tengo la señal ahora.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, working? Karen? The signal is back? Yeah, okay. Welcome again, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from all the world. Thank you for joining and join us, and welcome to the Our World Heritage 2021 debate and the month dedicated to impact of disaster and pandemics on World Heritage sites. I'm Umberto Bonomo, Director of the Cultural Heritage Center at the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile, and with Fernando Pérez, Karen Golle, Yolanda Muñoz, and Hilter Gonzáles, we have planned this seminar called One World Seminar that brings us profound knowledge accumulated from around the world on how pandemic and natural disasters have affected and continue affecting our World Heritage sites. Throughout this month, we have organized more than 20 sessions and conversation as a collective effort of more than 100 people, some of which are from the most remote area of the globe. I will also like to thank all the coordinator of each session and the presenter who will accompany us throughout this month. For those who don't know our World Heritage Foundation, it seems relevant to me recall our goals. The purpose of the foundation is to promote heritage, protection, conservation, and management, to support knowledge-based decision-making, to promote good governance of the World Heritage Convention, and to engage and empower civil society in heritage protection and management. Having said this, I will introduce the theme of this month, sharing with you a short video that explains how disaster and pandemics have affected the world.
Recent disasters and an actual pandemic have exposed the fragility and vulnerability of our world heritage. These exceptional sites and pieces, which we would like to preserve for all humanity and future generations, do not exist in a segregated world. They belong to our social environment and our daily life. But at the same time, the World Heritage Sites are in danger. They are threatened by natural hazards that attempt against their existence. The pandemic has revealed their fragility and how much the human presence in them is vital and necessary for their survival. How can we protect them and at the same time give them life and new meanings? If we hope for a future for them, we should stop considering them only as beautiful objects or places, merchandise for the tourist industry, and fully integrate them into the social and cultural dynamics of daily life. We propose to promote a great discussion around the world on the risks and effects of disasters and pandemics on World Heritage sites. We invite non-governmental organizations, academies, representatives of civil society, and local governments to participate, to contribute with new proposals for public policies on the conservation and safeguarding of the cultural and natural heritage of humanity.
Today's session is called The Value of Culture During Pandemics and is moderated by Lee Jae. Lee Jae is a founder and a principal architect of Lee Jae Architects in Seoul office. After graduating with the master degree from Honik University in Seoul, in South Korea, he studied architecture from the master course at UPC, Escuela Técnica Superior de Arquitectura de Barcelona, and he has received his second master from the European University of Valencia, Arquitectura y Diseño. And before he founded his home practice in 2018. Lee Jae, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Umberto. Thank you for having me here to meaningful event as a coordinator. Hello, everyone. My name is Lee Jae, and thank you so much for joining us and participate in this conversation. First, I'll explain about our session 12 topic, the value of culture during pandemic. Nowadays, our World Heritage Site in crisis, and their existence is threatened by natural disaster. In addition, the recent pandemic has shown the weakness of World Heritage Site and how people are essential to preservation and maintenance of World Heritage Site. Our heritage consists of cultural, natural, or mixed landmark. Cultural heritage sites so exceptional that it's important to transcend border and has shared importance for all of us. Building, monuments, artifacts, and the structure as well as the value that exists, art, that scholarship are universal value that belong to all humanity, regardless of where they are located. We intend to conduct this discussion under the title of the value of culture during pandemic to discuss the protection and preservation of our nature and cultural heritage, while giving them right and new meaning at this time. In addition, we want to address how cultural value have changed since the COVID-19 pandemic. Now we have 8 speakers from different 6 countries, such as Spain of Europe, Australia of Oceania, Korea of Asia, USA of North America, Tunisia of Africa, and Chile of South America. So thank you to everyone who attend this session 12, and we will start the presentation from now. So first speakers and Karen Golle and Jose Ueda. So Karen is hold a degree in art from the Pontifical Catholic University of Chile, master degree in cultural heritage, identification analysis and management at the Universidad de Valencia in Spain, and master degree in conservation and restoration of cultural heritage from Universidad Politécnica de Valencia in Spain. She has worked in different conservation and restoration projects focused on the painting conversation, the use of reflecting, transporting, imaging in contemporary painting, and cataloging of intangible cultural heritage. Currently, he works as coordinator of cultural heritage course at the Cultural Heritage Center, Pontifical Catholic University of Chile. And Jose Ueda is a sociology university and aristocrat. He was born as a premature baby in Ikati. That's why his parents offered him to the Virgin, asking for his recovery. He's part of Sociedad Religios del Carmen de Riquez. So since he was 11 years old, he withdrew this religion's brotherhood. However, he returned in 2011. Since the moment, he has focused his research on pre-Columbian instruments used during the Ballet Chino del Carmen pre-Columbian dance. So please start your presentation.
Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lee. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As Lee mentioned, with Jose Ojeda, we will speak about the cultural and spiritual value of pre-Columbian dances, bailestinos, during a pandemic, and how it has affected the bailestinos of Tarapacá. Intangible cultural heritage has been affected by COVID-19 around the world. Chile has 2 elements inscribed in the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage List, bailestinos and Intangible Cultural Heritage of Aymara, communities in Bolivia, Chile, and Peru. The literal translation of bailestinos is Chinese dances, but in fact are not from China, are from pre-Columbian culture. In this session, we will use the name in Spanish, bailestinos, but probably a good translation, better than Chinese dances, is dance with pre-Columbian origins. On the 10th of December 2008, Chile delivered its acceptance of the UNESCO Convention for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage, entering into force on the 10th of March 2009. We will focus our session on bailestinos of Tarapacá. This will be explained later with more details by the bailestinos of Tarapacá's member and sociologist Jose Ojeda. Bailestinos were inscribed in 2014 on the representative list of the Intangible Cultural Heritage of Humanity. They are brotherhoods of musicians who express their Catholic faith through music, dance, and singing in the context of commemoration festivities to indigenous culture. There are different kinds of bailestinos in Chile, and the practice stretches from the center to the north of the country. I would like to share a short video to give you more context about these religious dances. As you notice, bailestinos are organized mainly by men from rural areas. Bailestinos are dances performed to the rhythm of music played on instruments of pre-Columbian origin. The leader sings memorized or improvised rhyming couplets that recount holy stories. He is accompanied by musicians and dancers. A drummer leads the choreography and controls the tempo of the music. Each group also has a flag bearer and guards who are usually women. Bailestinos are a tool for social participation, providing to its members and the local community a sense of identity and solidarity, because all of the community is involved in this expression, not only the people who perform the dances. Thus, this integrated festivity involves the community. This living heritage has been affected in different ways by the coronavirus pandemic, while at the same time has provided more faith to the communities during these difficult times. The cultural and spiritual values of bailestinos during pandemics become more important because this festivity gathers the community around the Catholic faith and expresses their culture that has been transmitted for generations. The communities and experts are looking for new ways to perform these festivities through online platform, recording an event without the public, archiving photos and videos, etc. In fact, UNESCO launched a web platform to share and exchange experience of living heritage in the context of the pandemic, both in terms of its impact and the diverse ways in which communities turn to their living heritage as a source of resilience and recovery. But are those tools used by the community? Do the communities really use electronic telecommunication devices in the north of Chile? It's in this context that José Ojeda, a baile chino of Tarapacá member and sociologist, will explain the bailes chinos of Tarapacá, and he will give us some clues how the coronavirus has affected the communities in the north of Chile. It is important to mention that this is José's point of view as part of the community, and he will focus on a particular pre-Columbian dances from Tarapacá, a region in the north of Chile. José, please. I give you the floor.
Bien, buenos días a todos. Es imposible hablar de la religiosidad popular en Chile sin también incluir el desarrollo cultural de su sociedad y de todo el territorio. Las manifestaciones religiosas están plagadas de productos, tanto materiales como simbólicos, que provienen de la cultura. El impacto que tuvo la evangelización tras la conquista española en el territorio chileno a finales del siglo XVI hasta el siglo XVII y XVIII, tuvo como una de sus principales consecuencias la emergencia de hermandades de músicos danzantes que acompañarían y darían sostén al fructífero calendario festivo popular. En este contexto, hasta hoy sobreviven cerca de 90 cofradías que en sus inicios eran conocidos como bailes de indios, y que durante el siglo XIX comienzan a conocerse como bailes de chinos, concepto utilizado peyorativamente para designar a la gente del bajo pueblo. Esta manifestación devocional llega al extremo norte de Chile tras el auge de la industria del salitre a finales del siglo XIX. Con la victoria chilena en el conflicto bélico, pasa a protagonizar la festividad de la Virgen del Carmen en la Tirana a través de su rol danzante y custodio. Cada mes de julio se reúnen millares de danzantes y peregrinos a rendir culto a la que es la patrona de Chile, y es precisamente el baile chino de Iquique el encargado de escoltar y custodiar la pequeña imagen del santuario en todos los oficios y procesiones que se realicen con ella. De aquí que, a diferencia de las aproximadas 230 sociedades religiosas danzantes, el baile chino de Iquique se destaque por la cercanía y vínculo con la imagen peregrina del pueblo. Generación tras generación, los varones de familias enteras le han sido miembros de esta centenaria tradición, y que hoy, producto de las políticas sanitarias de confinamiento, han impedido el peregrinaje a los santuarios de todo el mundo, incluyendo la visita al templo en la Tirana. Desde niños con pocos meses de vida hasta adultos sostenidos a veces solo por la fe, se han visto imposibilitados de danzar y cantar a la chinita, como amorosamente le denominamos. Fuera de la profunda pena que provoca el no poder ir a visitar a la madre a su casa, el mayor impacto que considero destacable en esta ocasión lo podemos evidenciar en tres grandes puntos. Primero, impacto del uso y acceso a las herramientas tecnológicas de telecomunicación a distancia, destacando que al interior de estas cofradías, la mayor parte de sus integrantes son niños y gente de avanzada edad. A estos últimos se les dificulta el uso de los dispositivos electrónicos de telecomunicación, dependiendo de un tercero para poder acceder a la mayoría de las actividades realizadas en modalidad virtual. De igual forma, el patrimonio cultural heredado en estas hermandades está vinculado a las clases sociales alejadas del poder económico, por lo tanto, la adquisición de un equipo, una buena conectividad y las habilidades necesarias para su uso a veces están ausentes en muchos de ellos. Segundo, redistribución del poder y de la jerarquía interna. Considerando que estas hermandades obedecen a tradiciones centenarias y que sus líderes están compuestos por personas de edad avanzada, en contexto de normalidad, todas las decisiones importantes pasan por sus cabecillas más longevos, situación que ha tenido que cambiar en el contexto de la festividad virtual. Los más viejos han tenido que canjear poder con los más jóvenes, debido a que estos tienen el conocimiento necesario para llevar a cabo actividades a través de las plataformas y herramientas de telecomunicación. En definitiva, la estricta pirámide jerárquica ha sucumbido para una vinculación más horizontal. Y finalmente, sobre la vivencia religiosa. Al ser la manifestación devocional de los chinos de un carácter estrictamente material y concreto, la realización de las festividades en modalidad virtual son consideradas como ejercicios para no perder el contacto entre los miembros y el reunirse en torno a los oficios religiosos en honor a la Virgen del Carmen. Sin embargo, la opinión de la gran mayoría considera que la vivencia religiosa de la piedad popular en los bailes chinos no es sustituida por estas, recalcando en todo momento lo irreemplazable del estar ahí. En conclusión, gracias a la pandemia por COVID-19, las desigualdades sociales se vieron potenciadas, reflejándose en el pobre acceso a las redes, dispositivos y plataformas en donde se realizan las actividades devocionales virtuales. De igual forma, el contexto promovió la negociación por parte de los distintos grupos etarios respecto a la distribución del poder dentro de estas jerárquicas instituciones. Por lo tanto, esta pandemia ofreció oportunidades para la redefinición de las relaciones internas y también reveló los grandes desafíos sociales que aún quedan pendientes por resolver. Gracias por su atención.
Thank you, Karen and Jose, for doing your presentation on a very interesting topic, and it was really great presentation. So I would ask something Q&A after all speakers finish presentation. Okay. So second speaker is. Spanish speaker. His name is Carles Pastor, who's from Barcelona. He is principal architect at Pastor Associate in Barcelona. Architecture bachelor degree by the Barcelona School of Architecture at SAP from the Tech University of Catalonia, UPC, along with MBA Architecture, Master in Architecture Management and Design by Business School. For several years, he worked and interns in different renowned studios from Barcelona, such as EMBT, Mura, San Vicente. In 2030, he moved to Brazil and collaborate and associate Collective de Arquitectos while begin developing his own project as PA. He has worked in building and urban renovation projects involving historical buildings from the 19th century, in which he existed clear will to enhance the historical elements and the techniques such as original brick walls, mosaic floor, or structural conformance. Currently, he manages Pastor Associate, and they develop new and innovation of apartment building, educating buildings, innovation, urban planning, among others. So, Carles, please start your presentation.
Thank you very much, Lee, for having me here. It's a great pleasure. Let me share the screen with you. Do you see my screen correctly? Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I'm really glad that we bring this issue to debate because Heritage means many things. It means identity, feeling of belonging, religion, memory, so many important things for civil society. Today, I'd like to talk about how digital tools have become a powerful tool to help us restoring and recovering our cultural heritage. When Professor Lee contacted me to participate in this roundtable, I immediately thought of this case I'm going to talk about, because I had the opportunity to discover it some months ago, actually. It's called the Romanesque paintings of Saint Clement de Taüll Church. Taüll is a small village located in the valley of Boí, in the Catalan Pyrenees. It's 3 hours far from Barcelona. So we see Barcelona down here. It's 3 hours far from Barcelona. It's well known for its beautiful natural landscape surrounding it and for its Romanesque church, Saint Clement de Taüll Church, one of the most important Romanesque pieces of heritage in Catalonia, due to the Pantocrator, the name that receives the original paintings dating from the year 1123. It's actually in the UNESCO World Heritage Site list, so it's quite interesting. The church is actually a basilica plan structure that has 3 naves, each of them with terminal apse and large columns separating the side naves. The interior of the church, the walls of the naves, apses and columns were originally covered with polychrome decorations, but the main and most famous mural painting is located at the central apse and is of Christ in majesty within a mandorla. The Pantocrator, which is the representation of the Christ, was made by the master of Taüll. He was called the master of Taüll, who is considered the greatest mural painter of the 12th century in Catalonia, northeastern Spain, as well as one of the most important Romanesque painters in Europe. In the early 20th century, the National Art Museum of Catalonia in Barcelona took the original mural paintings inside the church to protect and preserve them. Then an exact replica of the mural painting on the central apse was made in place of the original. However, the original mural painting on the northern apse can only be seen in the National Art Museum of Catalonia. So this is how was the original state after removing the original paintings and the exact replica that was done. And this is how it looks with the view, with the new video mapping technique that accurately reproduces the original state of decoration of the apses and columns. So I wanna show you a video of this mapping that was done to recreate the original decoration. I think it's quite interesting. You have the audio on, so you can hear the soundtrack as well. I'm gonna move fast so we can just. So this is the final decoration process through this interesting video mapping design that they did. And actually, what I wanted to show you next is the making of how this process was done. Actually, it's quite interesting how the process of through 360 laser scan was done. They worked through point cloud system of 45 million points, with a distance between the points of 3 millimeters. The laser captures around 1 million points per second. And after this, this point clouds goes into the 3D modeling and the software. So the original image is assembled on the existing construction. After that, they just used 6 high definition projectors that are integrated into the space of the church. And visitors can see both original paintings as well as complete recreation of the iconography. So we see how they assemble, how they recreate digitally all the parts in detail of the original image with the exact colors, and they organize it in different layers so they can just create these mappings and this movement and create all this history and put in this soundtrack behind. So it's quite interesting how they bring it to these digital techniques, and they managed to implement inside the original decoration of the space. So you can just have a fully immersive experience once you are there visiting the church, the original church. So you can see how they just fit the images in the place, because the space, the surface is a dome, is a semi-dome curved projection. So they need to adapt all the maps to this curved surface. Well, this is it. So basically, in conclusion, from my point of view, digitalization has been very positive from different perspectives. First of all, it's transforming the way society perceives heritage. We used to visit architectural heritage as static spaces and buildings, and the only option you had was reading or hearing the historical explanation to understand it. Now we can also watch, and maybe someday we will smell recreations and reinterpretations of that pieces of heritage, which I believe is a great immersive experience. Second, it has changed the way we consume this heritage. It has become a powerful educational tool. It gives an opportunity to have a really immersive experience from home, actually, because you can just check it, you can just enter it and consume this content from everywhere. And this at the end of the road, it has democratized the consumption of this kind of content. I mean, in this case, of this heritage. So it's a powerful tool. It's also a powerful tool for heritage conservation and maintenance. So if you think about it, the problem to report our heritage nowadays is the lack of physical evidences, and having a digital, let's say, digital twin of or database is a better way to copy, duplicate, or divulgate this content and information without losing a piece of information. So basically, this is it. Thank you very much. Lee, I give you the floor.
Thank you for your presentation, Carlos. It's very interesting subject, and there are many things I want to ask you later.
Okay.
So next speaker is Dr. David Beynon. He's an associate professor in architecture and associate head of research for the School of Built Digital and Natural Environment at the University of Tasmania. He completed his architecture qualification PH at the University of Melbourne in 1999, and then worked in architecture practice in Singapore and Lisbon before registering as an architect, and the founding also Ken Architect in Melbourne with his partner in 1995. He then completed PhD in urban design in 2022, also at University of Melbourne, and combined architecture practice in Melbourne with academic work at Deakin University before joining the University of Tasmania in 2019. David Beyond's research involved investigating the social, cultural, and compositional dimensions of architecture and process of urban renewal, migration, and cultural change in the Australia and Asia. He is also the Vice President of Society of Architecture and Urban History, Asia. So Dr. David Beynon, now is your turn. So are you ready?
Yes, thank you very much.
Please start your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for having me on this panel and for that introduction. I will share my screen. And we'll go full screen. We'll start. First. Okay, my presentation's entitled either Pandemic Distraction or Rethinking Oceania's World Heritage Sites After the Pandemic. Now, the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on Oceania's World Heritage Sites, at first glance, don't seem to be extremely serious. And it seems Oceania generally has gotten off fairly lightly with the current pandemic in terms of infection rates and lives lost. And this is being reinforced, and I guess, by geographic distance and isolation of many parts of Oceania, and reinforced by various governments' isolationist policies, including, of course, Australia. So the sites that you see on this map, which are in Oceania, they may be open or closed, but probably if you're not in the same country or sometimes in the same state, you probably are not going to be able to visit at the moment or very soon. Essentially, this has led to some instrumental factors. There's less tourism, of course, in the region's sites. There is essentially in Tasmania, where I am, there has been local tourism, but for some period of months, not even people from other parts of Australia could visit. Obviously, this has been economically detrimental, but perhaps it's been environmentally beneficial, and there's been some discussion of that. However, essentially, the pandemic in this part of the world has come as a distraction, really, I think, from previous issues that have had devastating consequences across the region. And I'm talking against of bushfires in Australia, pretty much almost every summer for the last 5 or 10 years, particularly seriously in 2016, 2018, 2019, 20. Extreme weather due to, I guess, climate change and global warming generally. So here's a local newspaper report on the 2019 Tasmanian bushfires, which, as it notes, burnt over 95,000 hectares of the Tasmanian Wilderness World Heritage Area, which the closest parts of that are a couple of hours from where I am now. More broadly, I suppose that, this is an ongoing thing, and maybe the pandemic has given us kind of pause to think about things that have been happening for a long time. This is a photograph that I took in New Zealand's Fox Glacier. It's not a great photograph. It's pre-digital cameras and it's my point and shoot camera from 1994, but I think you can see the extent of the glacier quite well. This is a photograph taken by someone else in 2013. And you can see, I think it's taken from pretty much the same position, but the glacier has dramatically receded. So essentially, these are things that are happening. The ongoing coral bleaching of Australia's Great Barrier Reef is, of course, very well known. And these issues haven't gone away, despite the temporary lull in human activity that have seen some reports of improved environments in 2020 and 2021. However, I guess what I'm interested in is how this physical pause created by this imposed lack of activity may give us pause for thought about the priorities of the past and present societies and the relation of cultural and natural conservation to what we should now value and prioritise. Which I guess brings me to a kind of broad question, which I think some of the sites which are local to where I am present maybe some interesting answers. An ongoing question is how Oceania's World Heritage Sites might be part of this idea, and intrinsically, not because they might be threatened currently. Cultural sites in particular represent watershed moments and periods in human history. Colonial sites in Oceania, particularly in Australia, represent a legacy of human expansionism and attitudes and activities of conquest and subjugation. Literally, in this case, humanity transported cruelly to a place that was really on the complete opposite side of the world to where they came from. And this, where you're looking at, is the former penitentiary at Port Arthur in Tasmania, which is part of the Australian Convict Sites World Heritage Site. This started off as a kind of timber station where convicts were essentially here to cut down enormous trees, much bigger than you can find now, for supply of shipbuilding to the British Empire. It also was a kind of model for an idea of surveillance and control, in this case exercised most specifically over the prisoners who were sent here and were housed in this radial prison if they were particularly recalcitrant, where they could be observed at all times and controlled at all times. So this is a kind of distillingly utilitarian view of the world, which accompanies, I guess, the early white settlement of Australia. And even in places which are perhaps a little more benign seeming, such as this farmhouse. This is Brickenden Estate. It's also part of the same World Heritage Sites as Port Arthur. It's in northern Tasmania. Again, not very far from where I am here now. This is actually one of the Tasmania's oldest farming properties. It was settled in 1824. And when I say settled, essentially the land was forcibly taken from Tasmania's original inhabitants. And convicts were assigned to do the work here. And the convict buildings, including the main house here and many of the outbuildings, remain and are part of the site. Across the stretch of water in mainland Australia in Victoria, here is a building that's proudly emblematic of a mercantile transactional view of the world as well. The Royal Exhibition buildings and its surrounding Carlton Gardens were designed for the great international exhibitions of 1880 and 1888 in Melbourne. And this truly sort of grand and beautiful building, combining all sorts of late Victorian classical elements, Byzantine, Romanesque styles. I mean, this is part of it, of an international movement. There were over 50 exhibitions staged between 1851 and 1915 in Paris, in New York, in Calcutta, and also in Santiago in Chile. All of these shared a common theme. In the word of the day, to chart material and moral progress and displays of industry through, again, to kind of provide a marker of, I guess, control of the expansion of the world. And I guess this imposition we might consider in contrast with these kinds of sites and the region's natural sites. For instance, this is a section of New Caledonia's coral reefs, and the huge fringing reef around Grande Terre in New Caledonia and its associated ecosystems are an exceptional World Heritage Site. It's about 24,000 kilometers. There's 1,600 species of fish. And there's a protection legislation in place, which also involves, and I think this is sort of segueing in, arrangements with the indigenous Kanak communities are being established at the moment. And I suppose this integral connection with the region's indigenous cultural sites, where traditional occupation, life and ritual, I think is something that might give us that pause. This is, for instance, just across the water from New Caledonia in Vanuatu, the World Heritage Site of Chief Roy Mata's Domain. And these are 3 early 17th century sites, and these were associated with the life and death of the last paramount chief of what is now the island of Efate and its surrounding islands in central Vanuatu. Sites such as this are also integrally connected to the region's intangible cultural heritage, of which Vanuatu's tradition of sand dancing is listed by UNESCO as such. And it's interesting to note here that coming back to Australia, Australia has no current UNESCO listed intangible cultural heritage items. Most poignantly, I suppose, here, and this is bringing us back to Tasmania where I am, we have a site which is listed as mixed on the UNESCO list, and it has certainly been inhabited for more than 20,000 years in this island indigenously most commonly referred to as Lutruwita, Tasmania. But it is officially the Tasmanian wilderness area. I put wilderness in inverted commas here. It does constitute one of the last expanses of temperate rainforest in the world. It also is designated as wilderness, and certainly it is not currently inhabited, but it evidently was inhabited when the nearby Brickenden estate was settled, taken over, and its entire area has been inhabited for, as I said previously, 20,000 years or so. So this indicates a kind of definite need, I think, for kind of rethinking. What does this site actually mean for us now, thinking about this in a contemporary period? And this is a photograph that I took middle of last year at this time when nobody from outside the state of Tasmania could actually visit. I guess this issue of human inhabitation has been made clear in Australia's most recently recognised World Heritage Site. And this is the Gundit Mara People's Budj Bim site in Western Victoria. And this is a cultivated land. What you are looking at are the remains of small stone buildings and the management of landscape, including also stone organised aquaculture based on eels and permanent village settlement, quite contrary to what I was taught when I was at school here in the 1980s, that there was no permanent settlement prior to white occupation. Now, and I'm just sort of finishing off here, just as museums, I think, are presently confronting their histories of plunder, histories of appropriation and theft of other societies, I think World Heritage Sites can, I mean, some of them always have, but I think others can be seen as markers both of past attitudes and events, but also as places where we might kind of pause and think about the future. Oceania's World Heritage Sites, as well as representing significant places and past events, and these are some of the remains of the eel farm area, they also contain pointed clues for how our future might develop, whether in their intrinsic nature or the events which they've been subject to in recent times. This being fire, flood, and other aspects of climate change prior to the pandemic. So what I guess remains hopeful in the wake of the pandemic is we'll not go back to business as usual, as hopefully COVID-19 will be contained, but use the opportunity to see and use our world heritage in ways that improve both their situation and ours. And I think I'll leave that there. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you, Dr. David Bannon, for explaining many different situations in Austria. It was really good presentation. We understand what happened there. So thank you very much. And next speaker is Professor Junho Chen from Korea. And he is licensed architect in Italy and PhD in urban and architectural design at Politecnico di Milano. He is also assistant professor at Seoil University in Seoul, South Korea. He completed his bachelor degree at Politecnico di Milano in Italy, and he received his master degree and doctorate degree from the same university. And after graduating, he worked at Lissoni Architect in Italy for the long working experience. He returned to Korea and became a professor of architecture at Seoul University. And he's now working on several research projects in Korea. So Professor Junho Chen, please start your presentation now.
Okay, I share my images. Okay, can you see my images, my slides?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I will start. Okay. Thank you, Jay, for your kind introduction. It's my pleasure to be here today to introduce my consideration about the value of culture during pandemics. Sorry for, okay. As an architect, I'm very interested to the recent technologies such as VR and AR, which allows to create a new kind of spatial experiences, not just for during architectural design phase or construction phase, even for architectural heritages utilizations. I think this kind of technologies can bring the public closer to heritages during the pandemic that we are living now, and create a new way to make experiences of heritages. Korean traditional heritages, especially heritages located in Seoul, had a particular history, and its shape was continuously changed. This image shows the bird's eye view of the Korean royal palace, and we can individuate easily the reconstructed parts, such as the main gate that is in the center of the image, and its wall, which are made with the contemporary materials. So we can notice the differences from the past and new construction. This is because of different wars, including the Japanese invasion in 1592, the Korean War in 1950, which destroyed a good part of entire structure. Also, the Japanese colonization from 1910 to 1945, the Japanese government has changed the master plan of the royal palace to build their government buildings inside the royal palace. And finally, in 1995, the Korean government attempted to return to supposed original plan, destroying the Japanese buildings and reconstructing the original gate. And now is proceeding also the restoration or reconstruction plan until 2045. This is the original map. The Korean royal palace is originally constructed in 14th century by Joseon dynasty. And it is located in the center of northern part of the Han River. The city was designed in base of Korean Feng Shui theory, which considered the shape of nature as an important references of urban foundation. And here we can see in the first image how the Korean traditional drawing highlights the relationship between the nature, such as a mountain, canals, and the streets naturally made. But in same time, the drawing don't explain about the measure of artificial constructions, and it give information with subjective interpretation about the plans. So in face of restoration, it is very difficult to recognize the exact the position and the measures. The historical city of Seoul is delimited by continuous walls with 4 main urban gates and 4 secondary gates, and royal palace as well, such as the city in the city, is delimited by walls with its own gate, which is called Gwanghamun, and you can find in this part of the map. So we can say the urban gate and the gate for the main royal palace has the same typology and the same functions. As you can see in this image, first left side, the royal palace is the only architectural heritages in 10 most visited touristic sites in South Korea. This is because, first of all, more than 50% of architectural heritages are religious temples, which are located in periphery. So it's difficult to reach these places. And second motive is because of strong urbanizations, where the heritage are preserved as a separated pieces from the city without a specific relationship with the other part of the cities. In 2020, the visitors of Royal Palace decreases of 60%. Before the pandemic, the heritages are visited in group of local tourists, foreigners, or students, but now, to respect the social distance, heritages are visited individually or in very small group without touristic guide. To satisfy the new touristic needs or trend during pandemic, the Ministry of Culture launched the AR touristic guide, which can give touristic informations and in same time also the immersive experiences with smartphone. This kind of digital work with AR can give not just the information, but it allows to have visual reproduction of historical culture and activity, new activity inside the heritage as well. Also in Europe, specifically in Italy, we can note significant cases of digital restorations of architectural heritages. For example, in Rome, in the heritage sites such as the Domus Aurea, or Terme di Carcalla, or Terme di Diocleziano, or Circo Massimo, the visitors can have immersive experiences of heritage through AR, overlapping the restored facade on the existing site. Especially here, I bring the example of Circo Massimo. We can follow also the Roman chariot racing, and we can see the lifestyle in ancient Rome. So this kind of digitalizations of heritages is important, especially because the survey and the research didn't remain just as academical documentations, but it is used as experimental materials through the reproduction technologies. I consider that the digital restoration is important, especially for the Korean traditional heritages, because first of all, most of national architectural heritages are constructed in wooden structure, and it makes very difficult the maintenance of heritages during the time, and the heritages is very vulnerable to fire as well. As you can see on this chart, right side, the national architectural heritages in South Korea are listed 571 in stone structure and 221 in wooden structure. But most part of heritage in stone structure are pagodas and not building itself. And this is pictures below shows the southern gate of the urban gate that I shown before, which is gone in fire in 2008. The gate is now reconstructed with the traditional shape, but about the restoration process, there are a lot of discussion because it's difficult to re-give the same structure, same use the materials, also use technologies is different from the traditional one. The second issue is that the Korean architectural heritages don't create any relationship with the urban environment because the heritages wasn't considered inside the development plan during the Japanese colonizations. As you can see on this chart, the urban planning zone of Seoul has grown 7 times more in 30 years from 1936. And during this period of colonization, Japanese colonizations, on the name of modernization, the Korean heritages are modified and isolated from urbanizations. And this makes difficult the recognition of the urban value of architectural heritages today. So as you can see here, the gates are separated from the urbanization, from the streets, and they demolished also the walls. The first image in this picture of Royal Palace after the Korean War in 1951. And we see that most of buildings are destroyed. And during the Japanese colonization, Japanese government has changed the master plan to construct their government building inside the Royal Palace. So the building inside the Royal Palace with the modern principle is actually the new construction of Japanese government buildings. And in the second images, you can see the Royal Palace today, and we can note such difference are. From 1990, it began the process of reconstruction of Royal Palace. Before Japanese government, the documentation said that there were around 500 buildings inside the wall. And in 1990, after colonizations and Korean War in 1950, it remains just 36 buildings. So Korean Ministry of Culture made the master plan of 20 years of reconstruction, and they reconstructed 39 buildings in 1995. And also in 1995, the Korean government has decided to destroy the Japanese buildings, Japanese government buildings, because it hid the Korean Royal Palace to the main streets. And in 2011, began a second reconstruction master plans, which restore other 80 buildings until 2045. In this diagram, we can see from the original plan on the left, what remained the traces in 1915. So after, during the Japanese colonizations. And right is the nowadays shape of the Royal Palace, and after the physical intervention and reconstruction by the Ministry of the Culture in Korea. I think in the contemporary Seoul, after the economical growth and strong urbanization, the urban shape and density has been changed a lot. And in this context, the architectural heritage is recognized as an isolated monument, and it didn't create any relationship with the urban environment. So the physical restoration or reconstruction cannot give a culture of relationship with the people. It means that the collective memory is losing in this kind of physical restoration or physical reconstruction. So I think in this context, I consider that digital restorations, which can restore not only architectural elements, but also the culture, and in the same time, the relationship with the context, is an important method for heritages, especially when the heritage are isolated from the other urban artifacts. Here is the example, one of the urban gates that I previously explained. This urban gate was demolished during the Japanese colonization to make the street of tank and the soldier to enter in the city of Seoul. And after more than 100 years, Ministry of Culture reproduced in digital way using the AR technology, the gate in the original place. I think this kind of digital restoration could change the way of visiting the heritages, especially when we have a difficult moment such as the pandemic in these days. And when we must have a certain distance from each other. So this can be a good chance to develop this kind of technologies to have also approach on a different field. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for showing your very interesting topic and what happened in Korea historically. And nowadays we are very important to prepare during the pandemic with the digital tools in the future. So very interesting your topic. Thank you very much. And next speaker is Benjamin Salisbury. Is he here?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, thank you. So he's a museum director of Amit Till Interpretive Center. He's doing a lot of activities as a speaker and externally. So thank you for attending this session today. Please start your presentation, Benjamin Salisbury.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. So I have the distinct pleasure and honor of serving as the museum director at the Emmett Till Interpretive Center, which is right across the street from the Tallahatchie County Courthouse of Sumner, Mississippi, where the infamous trial of J.W. Milam and Roy Bryant took place in September 1955 for the murder of Emmett Louis Till. Before going into great details around the presentation, I want to give a little bit of historical context concerning Emmett Till and why the Tallahatchie County Courthouse has been designated as a World Heritage Site in Sumner, Mississippi. So again, going back to 1955, we're going to go to August, which is about mid to the latter part of summer. Emmett Till, a 14-year-old African-American youth from the Chicago area, convinces his mother, the late now Mamie Till Mobley, to allow him to visit family in the Mississippi Delta. In the 50s, especially in 1955, the social climate concerning the relationship or lack thereof between African Americans and those who are of European descent to say the least, was a strained relationship. As a matter of fact, it was downright oppressive. White supremacy, especially in Mississippi, was a norm by state and by custom and practice. And reluctantly, Mamie Till, at the time, Mamie Till, his mother, agreed to allow him to come to Mississippi prior to school starting back in his hometown that following month. So during his visit, he, along with his cousin, Reverend Willa Parker, who's now Reverend Willa Parker, visited family members in Money, Mississippi, which is a very small town, approximately 10 miles outside of Greenwood, Mississippi, in the Mississippi Delta. And during his visit, Emmett Till would not just be accused, but actually whistled at a lady by the name of Carolyn Bryant in the front of Bryant's grocery and meat market. Days later, after this whistle, Emmett was taken out of the home of his great uncle Mose Wright and never seen alive again. Approximately 3 days from the time of his abduction, his body was recovered out of the Tallahatchie County River, where in September, the latter part of September that year, a trial lasting approximately 5 days would take place, where J.W. Milam and Roy Bryan will be found not guilty. This not guilty verdict and the history concerning the brutalization of Black folk, especially in Mississippi, but in other places during this time, would help give way to the modern day civil rights movement, which some accredit to actually starting January 1, 1956, by way of the bus boycott of Montgomery, Alabama. But let's fast forward a little bit, right? So you have the 50s and you have the 60s, and with that, the passing of legislation that gives way to African Americans having now the right to vote. And in some ways, or in a lot of ways, even today, you do see progress. But it wouldn't be until 2007 that this community, the community of Tallahatchie County, would come together and create a biracial committee or cohort for whom came together for the purpose of cultivating racial harmony in Mississippi, in Tallahatchie County, in the hopes that this process would serve as an example and or as an inspiration to other places across the South and quite possibly for society at large. And the name of this cohort would be the Emmett Till Memorial Commission, which was spearheaded by the late Jerome G. Little. So in 2007, this biracial commission comes together over the course of about 9 months, and they come to an agreement that before we can commemorate and appropriately remember anything, we have to acknowledge that in our county and in our community, we allowed racism to do great hurt and harm to us. And that was made all the more apparent by the not guilty verdict rendered in that courthouse, in that courtroom. At this time, the courthouse had fallen into dilapidation. And based off of the will of the commission, they believed that first and foremost, we had to acknowledge publicly our shame and dismay for being silent for over 50 years concerning not just the death and murder of Emmett Till, but also the not guilty verdict rendered in our county and community. But then we had to do the best we could to create a work of tangibility, right? That we acknowledge that saying I'm sorry is one thing, but what are we doing to really exhibit the desire and the resolution to be better to one another? And that would give way to the restoration of Tallahatchie County Courthouse. And also it would give way to the creation of the Emmett Till Interpretive Center. So I shared that because it took approximately 7.5 years from the time of the apology being shared on the courtyard steps to the completion of that first phase of restoration. And that restoration took place in large part to serve as a lasting reminder to ourselves, but also to others, the importance of truth telling and the importance of using spaces that, that have history, even when that history is a hard truth or a hard reality, that you can take those spaces and reimagine them and use them as teaching tools for your community, but also as a point of healing, and a way of coming together for the purpose of recreating your identity and recreating one's narrative. And so the Emmett Till Interpretive Center serves as a day-to-day organization to help engage others and not just the narrative concerning the death of Emmett Till and his mother's desire for justice, but also our own personal narrative within the frameworks of racial reconciliation or racial healing. And so in 2015, the spring of 2015, the courthouse and the courtroom reopened to the public. It also serves as a functioning courthouse, along with the Emmett Till Interpretive Center. And so initially, we were able to use this space, or rather use that space, to host some of the programs that we made available to youth in the area and others, whether it was just to be a community space and a community building for meetings and or other organizations to bring awareness to various subject matters, but then also directly, we use it directly to host some of our photo documentary workshops. We believe it is very important to use the arts when it comes to storytelling. And we understand that the arts are a very impactful and integral way of cultivating togetherness. And it's also a very important means and medium to work through past traumas. And so prior to the pandemic, we were able to host a yearly program where we engage youth in not just the Emmett Till tragedy, but in the narrative concerning civil rights, and that civil rights was built off of not just those of the most prolific names and status, but off of the many that were nameless, right? The millions that made it possible for folks to be able to vote and be able to go to school and things of that nature. And so when the pandemic hit, we realized that we had to pivot how we engage the public and pivot how we share and expand this narrative, well, at least from our purview, of course. And so one of the things we agreed upon was the fact that we had to be willing to use social media to engage others. And we were able to do that somewhat successfully. Now, in light of that truth, the fact still remains that in Tallahatchie County and in a lot of areas within the South, and really in a lot of areas in the whole of North America, we do have some technological issues. Broadband internet and high-speed internet is not available for everyone. And those realities, along with a lot of other issues, have been exacerbated by the pandemic. And yet we still believe that it is of the utmost importance that we continue to use what we have to engage those who are interested and willing to come into these spaces. And so although we couldn't have quote unquote tours during the pandemic, we were able to encourage others to use some of the other technological platforms that were available to help give context to, again, not just the Emmett Till tragedy, but to social justice in general and how we play or fit within that narrative. So one of the platforms used is the Emmett Till Memory Project app, where people can literally drive to various sites throughout the Mississippi Delta and a few sites in the Chicago area that are tied to the legacy of Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley. People can also reach out to us and learn more about this narrative on our website, emmett-till.org. And although we've recently reopened by appointment only, we're slowly getting to the place where we can safely engage with folks person to person. And going forward, we look to continue to find ways to merge technology and other digital platforms concerning this narrative and concerning how we can continue to work towards cultivating racial harmony here in the Mississippi Delta, but also in society at large. So on behalf of the Emmett Till Interpretive Center, I truly do thank you for your time, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Mr. Lee, I give the floor back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your great speech. And I think you approached it from your perspective. Thank you very much. And our last presentation speaker's name is Bunueta Hanachi and Lin. Okay, Bunueta Hanachi. Lim Rechdi. So she's a Tunisian architect, graduated from the Tunisian National School of Architecture. She is currently enrolled in Master of Architecture Conservation in La Sapienza University of Rome, Italy. She had various work experience in Tunisia, France, and Turkey, including monuments, restoration, interior design, and architecture writing. She now works as an independent architect. She is also a member of Tunisia Media Safeguarding Association. And another speaker is Bonuteina Hanachi. She is a Tunisian architect too, based in Tunisia, project manager in a multinational design company. She holds a degree from the National School of Architecture and Urban Planning of Tunis and the Universidad Europea of Valencia, where she was enrolled in the international program MRT Valencia. She has a national and international experience in Turkey and Tunisia and France for interior and architectural design, territorial redevelopment, and sustainable urban planning. She is also active in civil society and member of Atlas, a Tunisian association promoting sustainable economic, social, and cultural development. So thank you for attending our presentation. So please start your presentation now.
Busaina, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
I don't know if my partner is here.
No, actually, sorry, my microphone was off.
Okay.
I didn't know.
Okay, no.
So thank you so much, Lee. Again, thank you everyone for being here. So as mentioned before, our topic will be about promoting art and heritage in Tunisia, which is through social media, in Tunisia, which is a post-revolutionary country witnessing a cultural ferment nowadays. So in fact, in Tunisia, culture and heritage have been in a state of emergency due to the censorship that lasted more than 23 years. So the 2011 revolution has in fact liberated all the frustrations and allowed artists and activists to express themselves freely and to experiment culture the way they wanted. In the aftermath of the revolution, millions of citizens they in fact joined the social media after years of censorship, because we had censorship, we couldn't access to a lot of social platforms. And nowadays, we can say that we are still experiencing an economic and political and a health crisis, just like everyone else. And our country is going through a rough period of time, and people are kind of feeling unheard. That's why social media in our country is such an important thing. Elsewhere, I mean, in a lot of other parts of the world too, but for us, we have like this, close relationship to social media, and it's a space where people can share their discontent and what they are not happy about. So a huge number of groups and association have joined the social media in order to gather people around certain causes. On the other hand, on the silver lining part, and in the middle of this crisis, our country is witnessing a huge and marvelous cultural change and a remarkable raise of awareness. And artists and heritage activists understood the importance of the social media tool in the fight for promoting art and heritage. And with the pandemic, the urge of finding new effective way to promote art and culture has raised again. And we noticed that there is a sort of a sense of patriotism among the users of the social media around this, around certain topic. During the pandemic, many artistic platforms have launched different initiatives in order to keep arts and heritage alive during this period of crisis. We start with Archivart, which is the first the first cultural, let's say, and artistic startup in Tunisia working on the potential of visibility of the artists. And it's in fact, it was launched in late 2019. And it's in fact a digital platform where that artists, buyers, and collectors can join to share their works. So during the pandemic, the startup thought about consuming culture differently. And they launched this initiative called Artists Against Corona. And for this purpose, the startup resorted to storytelling and promotion on Facebook and Instagram. And also they focused on crowdsourcing on Facebook. And they created a group to facilitate the different interaction between the stakeholders. This group actually is a place where great ideas of solidarity are hatched and new constructive debates about new artistic initiatives are evoked. Actually, I didn't explain it previously. The initiative is based on, let's say, the civic spirit of artists that commit to donate a part or of their sales income to health institutions, because now we are facing the third wave and it's kind of a critical situation now in Tunisia. So back to the Facebook group that they launched. It's actually a place where people can brainstorm together and work hand in hand in order to fight the virus. Also, it's a place where they can manage donation and create discussion about it. And also, it's an opportunity to raise awareness among citizens about the importance of art in our country and in the fight in general, the fight against the coronavirus or any other crisis. Another initiative was actually launched by another art foundation, which was launched also in late 2018. It's actually the first experimental art station based in a rural area in Tunis, Tunisia, and it offers a complete program that is accessible to everyone and it's free of charges. So this foundation, they launched an initiative during the first wave, during the general lockdown. This initiative calls out artists to create urgently and with the means at their disposal. So they gathered for 95 days, 95 selected work that were through on-site and online exhibitions, performances, talks, workshops, etc. So the main aim of this initiative is to support the artistic community, which is in a continuous crisis, and at the same time raise awareness again about the importance of art and remind people that art is still alive and I mean we need it in our daily life. And this initiative actually was based on online and on-site sometimes exhibitions. So they focused on broadcasting on YouTube and all the social media platform. They organized interviews with the artists and virtual exhibition tours also like visits to the artist's home and the talks, and they were all centered around raising awareness and raising awareness, and again, talking about how important art is in our country and especially in this period of time. So that was about, I was interested in talking about arts and culture in general, and my friend Reem will talk mainly about heritage. So there you go, Reem.
Okay, thank you, Busaina. So I'm going to introduce the part where I'm going to show how social media helps promoting built heritage in Tunisia. Can you see my video? I think it's in pause. Yeah. Okay. So the first initiative I'm going to introduce is We Know le Patrimoine, which literally translates to Where is the Heritage? So this is a Facebook group launched by Édifices et Mémoires. It's an association that promotes and takes real action on safeguarding the heritage of Tunisia. This group today gathers about 17,000 members, among them not only architects and heritage specialists, but also a larger audience of curious and passionate people in general. So this group is in line with other virtual protest movements that preceded it, such as a movement called Oui le Trottoir, which means where is the sidewalk? It's a protest group, virtual Facebook group that protests against illegal use of sidewalks by shops and restaurants. So that's why this group, We Know le Patrimoine, used approximately the same kind of title to ensure this continuity of the protest movement online, of course. So here are examples of what you can see on the We Know Patrimoine Facebook group. It's mainly public denunciations and protests, whether it's about abandoned old buildings that have a real great heritage value, or it's like here, for example, it's a warning about the future projects that might affect the heritage facades or the heritage buildings. So these groups, these virtual protest groups, have actually a real impact on real life decision makings and in governmental laws. And the best example is this EMR law. So it all started in 2017 when an old building collapsed in the city of Sousse. And this incident provoked such a huge polemic, and fingers were pointed at the government for not taking care of its citizens, for not taking care of these old buildings, that the Ministry of Equipment back then drafted in a very big rush a project of law that was made for supposedly protecting the citizens and the heritage, but in reality, it's a draft of law that gives the authority to regional representations to actually take demolition decisions without even having to consult heritage experts. So it's a law that's been protested a lot, and it's a law that's been accused of opening the doors for speculation. So members of We Know le Patrimoine Facebook group started this beautiful campaign. Actually, it was an awareness campaign about this project of law that was shared all over Facebook and reached even also the mainstream media on TV and on radios. You can see here, for example, in this photo, in this image, in this awareness image, the emblematic door of the Medina of Tunis, of the old town of Tunis, being destroyed. And just this image, just the idea of destroying this very important heritage kind of shook everyone, and that's why everyone kind of started spreading the message. So thanks to that, this project of law was blocked for many times since 2017, and last year in June, during the pandemic, actually, this project of law was withdrawn for a final revision. So let's hope it's not gonna pass. The second initiative I will show you is Lost in Tunis. It is a Facebook page launched in 2015 that is followed today by over 73,000 followers. So its creator's first intentions were to just spontaneously share his discoveries while exploring the old town and its surroundings. So you can see here, for example, a very beautiful hidden abandoned architectural gem he discovered. This one here is a photo of an open air market, so showing the everyday life of the citizens of Tunis. These are very interesting wall writings, I think. So during the first lockdown, during the COVID crisis, so the creator of the page sneaked out actually to go and take photos of the empty streets of the old town of Tunis and also of its surroundings. So I think it's really interesting because in general, these streets are very, very crowded, and you can barely see the cobblestone, for example, this one here, you can barely see it in general because of the crowd. But here, I think he managed to capture the spirit of the place and the beauty also of the old town of Tunis during the COVID times. So I think the COVID crisis was also an opportunity to rediscover those streets and how they look like without the crowd. So without really intending to, this page plays also the important role, which is the role of documentation. So here, for example, it shows the evolution in time of some buildings. You can see here in this photo the evolution of the same building over just the gap of, I would say, 4 or 5 years. You can see how the moldings were destroyed and how we are actually losing a great part of heritage. And it's interesting because thanks to those photos, there's an inventory that's being made, and one day, fortunately, if one day the government decides to take care of this heritage, well, we will have those photos to help us rebuild those buildings. You can see here a close-up of the same building, so we can see how the buildings completely disappeared. So to conclude, I would say that groups like Patrimonio and Lost in Tunis are doing a really great job in raising awareness, but also in documenting the heritage and surveying the heritage in a way. It is really great initiatives, but I think it's not enough. And the official institutions must be more effective. They must establish a clear roadmap for safeguarding the heritage, because today, unfortunately, heritage is really not on the priorities of the governments we've been having since a decade. And it doesn't look like the governments really care about that today, or they don't look like perceiving the importance and how the heritage can also contribute to the evolution, to the economical evolution of the country. So yes, thank you for the attention.
Thank you for your good explanation of what is happening in Tunisia during the pandemic. It is very helpful to understand, and thank you very much. And thank you very much for your presentation. All speakers finish the presentation now. So now we are going to talk about our session title with your topic. So all speakers attending today gave a presentation on various topics. So we are going to read the discussion with the title, The Value of Culture During Pandemic. So I would like to ask some question about your presentation now. First, I want to ask to Karen. So Karen, what are the positive aspects of the cultural value of Bale Chinos during the pandemic turning into the online communities?
I think it is important to mention that the context of Bailes Chinos from the north of Chile is the principal religious festivity, La Tirana. It is very important. It is every year and gathers around 300,000 people. The people involved in the festivity dance in the street, praying to the Virgin until they get to the La Tirana shrine. Due to COVID-19, the people have not performed this religious festivity. The church has live streamed the mass, but not the religious festivity, La Tirana. So because of oh, I'm back. I was frozen. So I mentioned that the church has live streamed the mass, but not the religious festivity, La Tirana, because of the sanitary situation. So from my point of view, this is a difficult and quite negative period for the community. Intangible heritage is something alive, and in this case, it needs the interaction of the people to be alive. This is not a monument or a building that you show on a digital platform and you get good results. This is something more complex, I think so. For example, to this period of time, in the north of Chile, the people could not celebrate La Tirana, and they started to create altars at home, and they invite to the neighborhood to create a spiritual environment. So they need each other, they need the community. So after this long introduction regarding your question, we could get some positive aspect about the use of online platform. As Jose mentioned, Palestinos is a hierarchical group. The oldest had to exchange the power with the youngest because they have the necessary knowledge to carry out activities through online platform and tools. The street hierarchical pyramid has succumbed to a more horizontal association. And finally, I think that this situation, the pandemic, has allowed to create activities to spread the intangible cultural heritage. For example, seminars like this, workshops, a conversation with living human treasures, etc. So I think those are positive aspects.
Okay, thank you. I understand your aspect to what you are thinking about, positive aspect. Thank you very much, Karen. And so I want to ask to Jose. It's very interesting to see the situation from three perspectives during the pandemic. So I want to ask you something related to your topic you mentioned. So first one is difficult to bail Chino face during the current pandemic, so not from any disaster people?
Please translate the question, please.
Oh, okay. Now is the difficult bail Chinos face during the current pandemic, so not from any disaster people. You understand what?
Sí, sí. Entendiendo, ¿no? Que cómo se enfrentan algunas, a ver, hay un conflicto intergeneracional, ¿no? Que se va produciendo en la interacción de las generaciones que vienen con la tradición versus las tradiciones que son más jóvenes. Por lo tanto, las dificultades que yo menciono, si bien es cierto, no son nuevas, gracias a la pandemia se intensificaron, ¿no? Como por ejemplo, la gente más antigua, la gente que obedece a la tradición de los bailes chinos, como mencionábamos, son gente de edad, son gente adulta, por lo tanto se rehusaban al uso de las plataformas virtuales para poder, por así decirlo, ¿no? Llevar esta vida devocional. Había como una reticencia, había como un freno para incorporar la tecnología en lo que tiene que ver con la performance. Sin embargo, insisto, como nombrábamos en la presentación, se hizo necesaria, ¿no?, la incorporación de la telecomunicación, y esto llevó que las dificultades que ya existían dentro del baile se acentuaran y tuvieran que, en el fondo, canjear esto que nosotros decíamos junto a Karen, ¿cierto?, de la redistribución del poder. Ya no está tan centrado en la cabeza de esta pirámide jerárquica, sino más bien que llega a una redistribución del poder con la gente joven, que es la que domina la tecnología, que es aquella que tiene que instruir a la población más longeva dentro del baile. Eso, Lee.
Okay, so you mentioned about the distribution of power, but in the meantime, why could this structure of power be maintained for a long time without changing?
Yo diría, por las conversaciones que hemos tenido, ¿no?, con la sociedad en sí, conversando internamente, tanto con la gente adulta, con personas que se van incorporando, hay que entender que los bailes chinos se han mantenido por la tradición. Hay que entender también que los bailes chinos, tanto en Chile como el que me corresponde a mí en el norte de Chile, está sostenido por tradiciones que se han mantenido a lo largo del tiempo. Mi baile se fundó alrededor del año 1908. Por lo tanto, de ahí incluso no se ha cambiado ni las vestimentas ni algunos ritos que hasta el día de hoy se hacen. Por lo tanto, estas estructuras de poder se condicen, tienen mucho que ver con la tradición, tiene mucho que ver con esta jerarquía por la cual está encabezada por un cacique, le corresponde un caporal, y de ahí viene todo este gamaje, ¿no?, de personas que participan dentro de la sociedad religiosa. Por lo tanto, yo diría que este mantenimiento, ¿no?, este como status quo con respecto a la jerarquía está sostenida firmemente por la tradición del baile, ¿no? Porque hay un miedo, ¿no? Hay un miedo, hay un impacto fuerte de este pensamiento interno, ¿no? Si incorporamos cosas nuevas a nuestro baile, es posible que sucumban nuestras bases y por lo tanto podríamos poner en peligro la centenaria tradición.
Okay, thank you. Perfect, your answer. Very nice. Okay, I want to ask something to Carles. And hi, Carles.
Hello.
Hello. I think your subject is very interesting. The pandemic that spread around the world this year has brought a lot of change in society as a whole. So how do you think digitalization towards restoration of cultural heritage could affect cultural value during the pandemic?
I think we have perceived how important is keeping the memory alive, and this includes our cultural heritage. So doing it the traditional way, many information has been lost, and probably digitalization could help provide better information and will help making better decisions in the future. I think, well, that's it. I think it helps somehow to provide better information and has made more accessible the the way we explain these historical events or the way this heritage is it's communicated to the world. So I think digital tools are fundamental nowadays to democratize somehow the access to this culture. Yeah, I think that there is a great discussion. I think there is part of these presentations today are focused on the digitalization and the digital tools and the VR, augmented reality. So I think it's kind of interesting how this has become, this has been moving really fast during the last year. So many people that probably didn't know anything about digital tools and digital environment have had to actually move forward very fast and adapt to understand how it works. And probably this has been like a really positive impact, the only one probably of this pandemic times. So I think this can help in somehow to improve our cultural approach to heritage.
I agree with your opinion, Carles, but I need more clear answers. So restoring culture heritage using digitalization tools, what are the cultural value we will experience during the pandemic with the digitalization tools?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. The positive. I mean, the values are the ones mentioned in the digital. Actually, provide more of an immersive. The cultural values is for me, it's understanding better how this heritage, where this history of this heritage comes from. So digital tools actually help to recreate or reinterpret to the reinterpretation of this heritage and somehow educates the world. So for me, the cultural value that somehow it can offer us is how this digital content can improve, I don't know, through education, can improve our approach or knowledge of different cultures. So I think it's implementing or increasing our cultural knowledge around the world. Actually, I've never been to South Korea, but probably after Professor Chen presentation, I could access all the visualization of the building there in the center of the city and understand better how it works, and maybe read and improve my knowledge of this kind of heritage. So I think the values are just improving our education on heritage.
Okay, thank you, Carles. I like your aspect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And Dr. Dave Benons, and so I want to ask something with your topic. So
sure.
I believe that it must have a culturally important value along with the natural object, the site, and the surrounding areas. So during the pandemic, why is the value of the environment and activity experience so important for us to protect our cultural heritage?
I think it's because these are all sites and practices that represent what we, whoever we are, have come to see as significant. And I think with natural environments, they are, I guess, things that have been around for a lot longer than we have. But when it comes to human activity and to our interventions in the environment, I think, because they represent things that we see as significant, they represent events that were significant, they represent characteristics of humanity, both good and bad. These are things that we do have to retain the memory of. otherwise, as they say in the cliche, you kind of have to relearn things that there is no longer a memory or a record, whether it's a place or a practice of. So whether that's more important during a pandemic than at other times, I'm not sure. But a pandemic seems to, I guess, because it's forced us all into periods of inactivity, it has made us think about these things more. And at the same time, being able to visit these places less. So it focuses, I think, our attention on what, say, World Heritage Sites mean, and how we might actually use them to think about the future, as well as what they, and that might be, related to what they've told us about a particular time in the past, whether it's an exemplar of a building type, whether it's a local cultural practice. I think all of these things, are, they're of immense value for us together to understand ourselves and to, I guess to have a future.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, your opinion. I like your opinion, what, how we can protect our cultural heritage. Thank you very much. And so I think we don't have enough time, so I want more past to the question. Okay, next.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Junho Chen, I want to ask you about your topic. What do you think is the value of culture heritage that can be experienced through VR and AR during the pandemic?
Yeah.
Because currently many countries around the world are actively using various VR and AR applications.
Yes. I think we use VR and AR for the heritage, for the cultures. I mean, the storytelling of the culture. When you visit architectural heritages, you can just imagine what you learned before on the text or on the books, and you in the mind you imagine what you see. But with the immersive experience technology, you can live the culture indirectly. So I think the VR and AR could give a storytelling about the specific heritages. So I mean about the costumes of the ancient people. I mean about the activity that they did in the past in certain area. So you don't just see the heritages, but you can enjoy with this kind of new technology the past lifestyle. And I think also this kind of technology can give also different approaches. I mean, with the digital contents, people enjoy the digital contents, and we can also improve the standardization of HBIM. That means historical building information modeling. That is the base of the the VR and AR technology. HBIM is maybe the specific BIM process for historical buildings, in which we can model the present shape of the buildings, but also the historical transformation from the past until now, including non-shape information such as repair histories. So we can have more complete documentation, digital documentation, that we can use in different way, maybe for the educational way, as mentioned Carles. We can use also for the cultural digital prevention. We can also use for prevention of different disaster, or we can use also just for as the digital documentation. So we can have the complete packages of digitalization instruments that we can use also in different way.
Okay, thank you. As you mentioned, VR and AR have a positive effect on the cultural values. So I wonder if it has a negative effect. So you think what is negative effect using VR and AR?
Yeah, first negative thing that come in my mind is maybe the physical visit of a heritage could be diminished. But I think if we produce interesting digital experiences through AR, so augmented reality, which you use on the site, so you directly physically come in the site and you use the device, and you have maybe you can create different digitalization on the existing site. Maybe the interest of the heritage of young generation could increase also.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And can I ask something to Benjamin Salisbury? Salisbury?
I'm here.
Okay. I have a question. Do you think the value of diversity for cultural preservation is so important?
Well, yeah, I think it's very important because for a number of reasons. I think one of the chief reasons that's important is because it helps us. I think for one, it helps us realize the fact that we live in a world with others, and what I mean by that is, depending on one's life experiences, and depending on geography and a lot of other things, those things shape the way you look at yourself. It shapes the way you look at others, and that's in and of itself isn't a bad thing. But when you have an opportunity to share space with other people, right, with other people from different cultures, from different backgrounds, from different geographical locations, and those that also have different customs and practices, it helps you kind of get a better glimpse of the human experience. It also helps you gain, it can help you also gain sensitivity to the fact that just because differences exist amongst us doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. That the differences amongst us actually can serve as a tool to make all of us better. And when we can uplift the humanity of every person, or of every person that's willing to share space with one another, whether it's actual in-person space or platforms used to bring people together, we then in turn strengthen the reasoning and purpose of our own stories, our own cultures, our own customs and practices, but then two, it helps us understand why it's important to stand up for the customs and cultures of others. That even so yeah, I think having heritage sites preserved and having various platforms for which these heritage sites or other heritage sites can be shared with others gives us a better glimpse of ourselves, while also giving an opportunity for us to learn about others in a space that otherwise may not exist.
Thank you very much. I think diversity is very important nowadays. So I like your mention. Thank you very much. And Bononata. So society is rapidly moving from offline to online centered and unexpected pandemic situations, having the rate in society becoming more rapidly changing to no face-to-face environment nowadays. So what kind of cultural value can communication in visual social media experience for us during the pandemic?
Well, as I mentioned before, social media has sort of reinforced the communication on its platforms, especially during the last year. It's somehow, I mean, like we are now, we are like gathered from all over the world. It somehow made the world a smaller one, and now we are like all of us gathered, thanks to social media, to generate debate about a crisis that's all of us are more or less experiencing in the same way. But apart from the fact that it's facilitating interactions and connection between us, I think that somehow it's maybe maybe it's enhancing individualism and it's, and it's like focusing only on social media to promote intangible culture, habits, just like what Karen and Jose brought up about the bailos chines, or what defines us as persons or as community. To be based only on social media for that, it's not actually the only, it's not maybe the only key to promote that. Which really opens up the debate about finding new ways and effective ways to, to remediate to that, let's say.
So I want to know your opinion. So tell us about the pros and the cons of cultural value that we will experience through communication in social media and during the pandemic.
Well, the pros and cons, I think it's what I just like said as an answer to the previous question. It's, the pros, it's making the world a smaller world. It's actively participating in raising awareness, making us close to each other. But at the same time, it's maybe for us as, for me, based on my own experience as a Mediterranean, or let's say, I feel like it's making us at the same time apart. So that's what I see for now.
Okay, thank you. Your answer, great answer. So that's all, everyone. Thank you so much for participating in this discussion. So we will believe this discussion today gave us a great opportunity to understand where we are going. So I would like to thank you, Umberto and Karen, for working on this discussion. So thank you very much, everyone, to attend this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.